Hello, I'm Linda, and today we're going to be making one recipe, which is biscuits, and you can make 3 different items with it, so it's fantastic. Today's recipe comes from this cookbook, Better Homes and Gardens New Cookbook. Got this from Costco years ago, and I use it all the time. I absolutely love it. Before you get started with this recipe, you need to preheat your oven to 450 degrees. And you also need to make sure you've washed your hands really thoroughly with soap, at least 20 seconds. You're going to need your hands for this recipe, and it's definitely good to make sure they're nice and clean. Today I'm going to be using a large metal bowl, a 1 cup measuring cup, 2/3 cup measuring cup, several different measuring spoons, a rolling pin, pastry cutter, and a large pan. The ingredients that we're going to be using today are flour, baking powder, not soda, but powder, salt, white sugar, cream of tartar, shortening, cinnamon, and also margarine and milk, which I've kept in the fridge until we need them. So I think we're ready to go ahead and get started. I've already washed my hands. So the first thing we need to do is add the dry ingredients to the bowl. So we're going to start with 2 cups of all-purpose flour. This same recipe makes biscuits, cinnamon rolls, and you can even roll it out for pizza dough. It makes a really easy to roll out pizza crust that tastes fantastic. 1 tablespoon of baking powder. 2 teaspoons of sugar, half a teaspoon of cream of tartar, quarter of a teaspoon of salt, and those are my dry ingredients. So now I'm going to mix them together. You can use a fork, a spoon, or pastry cutter. I'm going to use a pastry cutter because I'm going to be using that in my next step, and it means fewer dishes, which is always a bonus. Now you need to cut in a 1/2 cup of shortening. So I've got my shortening here. And as you probably know, shortening comes with the measurements on the box. So you take the shortening out of the box, unwrap it, put the box up to it, and cut the required length of shortening. So you see I'm taking my shortening and I'm lining it up to where it says a 1/2 cup, and I'm going to cut that part. I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to cut it in to the flour in little pieces. That just means it's already partly cut up, just makes it a little bit easier. Now the next step is to take your pastry cutter and use it to cut up the shortening right into the flour until the mixture resembles little small, they say like peas. So you're just gonna cut that in. Takes you about 1 to 3 minutes. Okay, now once your mixture has the shortening all cut in, your next step is to use your hands and you move all the flour and shortening mixture to the side so there's a little hole in the middle. And we're going to add 2/3 of a cup of milk to that little hole in the middle. And then I'm going to take a fork or a spoon and start mixing that up. I always pour my milk or ingredients over the counter so that in case I add too much, it spills onto the counter and doesn't add additional ingredients above what I need to my bowl. It's very easy to clear up a spill from the counter, pretty hard to take out extra milk from your bowl. So I'm just going to take my fork and start mixing that together. You don't want to mix this too much because you want your biscuits to be nice and fluffy. So you only want to mix them until the dough starts to look chunky and mixed together. Now that's looking pretty chunky. I'm just going to clear up my area here, put some of these things away, and then we can start rolling this out for biscuits and cinnamon rolls. Okay, so I've got my area cleaned up a little bit, and now I'm just going to dump this entire mixture out onto my island. And it's actually a good thing that there's still some flour left there because we're going to mix it all together, and the flour will help the mixture not stick to the counter. One thing it's good to do before you put your flour away is just take a little bit out because you may need it to sprinkle on your island or counter to keep the dough from sticking, because it definitely will. Okay, you don't want to mix this too much. You're going to put it into a ball, and then you're going, what I'm going to do, and you don't have to do this unless you're making 2 different things from this. What I'm going to do is just make this in half. Okay, so I've got 2 balls here. I'm going to start with this one. I'm going to make sure that the counter has some flour on it. I'm going to put a little bit of flour on the top and on my rolling pin. Now for making biscuits, you don't want to roll out the dough too thin, otherwise you're going to have really thin biscuits, and who wants that, right? So you're going to roll it till your dough is about 1/2 inch thick, because remember, this is going to rise. and you can use a biscuit cutter. I'm just using the top of a glass. So I'm just going to go around my dough. And I'm going to take little pieces of it and put them on my tray. Because I'm splitting this recipe in half, it's only going to make maybe 5 or 6 biscuits. But normally it's going to make 10 or 12 for you. When I'm placing the biscuits on the tray, I'm trying to keep them away from the edge, but close to each other. Keeping them away from the edge helps them to not get that square look on them. And when you keep them close to each other, then they spread up rather than out. Okay, this has given me 4 biscuits. And now I'm going to add some more flour. And this time I'm going to roll my dough, biscuit dough, out a little bit thinner. It's okay to use a lot of flour to help make sure that your dough isn't sticking to your countertop. I will often pick up the dough, put a bit more flour underneath it, and roll it again. You're kind of going for a square or oval shape with this when you're making cinnamon rolls. So I've got kind of a square or oval shape here. Now I'm going to take my margarine. You can use margarine or butter. And I'm going to spread this with a layer of margarine. Okay, once you've spread your margarine or butter all over the biscuit dough, then you're going to put some brown sugar on it. Just a thin, not too thin, but just a thin layer all around. And you can make sure that it goes everywhere with your hands. If you need to rewash your hands, definitely do it before you're touching this recipe too much. Okay, so I've got the brown sugar on there. Now I'm going to want to sprinkle cinnamon all over. This is a little bit tricky because my cinnamon bottle has a wide mouth on it, and if I start pouring cinnamon on here, I'm going to get way more than I want. So I'm going to use a spoon, and I'm going to shake it gently around. So that it's covered, but not too thick. Okay, now your dough is going to have a long side and a narrow side. What you're going to do is you're going to take your long side and you're going to start rolling it up. So you're going to end up with a nice long log. Now you're going to take a knife and you're going to cut slices off of that about 1 inch thick, and you're going to put them on your pan. Okay, so here are my biscuits and cinnamon rolls. They're all ready to go in the oven. I'm going to put them in there for 10 to 12 minutes, which means I'll put them in for 10 minutes and check them. When they start to get golden brown, just start to get golden brown around the edges, that's when you want to take them out. So I'm going to go ahead and get those starting to cook. Okay, my timer just went. Let's check on the biscuits and cinnamon rolls. We're looking for just a slight golden top, and it looks like that's what we've got. So I'm going to go ahead and take those out. It's been 10 minutes. Your oven might be different, but here they are, ready to eat as soon as they're cool enough. So enjoy, and thanks for watching.